I do think you see a lot of lack of humanity in the law. I think you see
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of, lawyers who maybe they were like that to begin with, or maybe they became that way, and maybe it's the chicken or egg phenomenon. But do you know what I'm saying? You see a lot of people
I,
that get, money, power, slash, the wrong people in the wrong positions is a kind of a dangerous equation in the law.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Tom Bosworth, and this is the City of Brotherly Law. Welcome to Philly's Legal Pulse, where we chat with some of the city's and the country's best attorneys about what's really going on in our courts and our communities. Let's dive in and see what's brewing in the City of Brotherly Law.
All right, Alex Perkins.
That is me. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And we met a whopping 2 minutes ago. So, personal injury lawyers, we're now good friends, I guess.
Yeah, we're brothers in the Brotherly Love podcast. Brotherly Law, I should say.
Are most of your cases cruise injury? I obviously see it on your tag there.
A good percentage of the cases I'm handling right now. It goes up and down. During the pandemic, the cruise lines weren't operating, so it was so we had a little stoppage on the incoming cases, but we're back up. Cruise lines have more ships than ever now, more cruise passengers than ever. They have these giant ships. Now they hold 7,500 people, like 2,500 crew, and they just keep making more. Like 37 million people are going to cruise in 2025, they say. So I'd say a good 60% of my practice, 70% reaching is cruise ship right now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but because I don't do that type of case, but aren't there like specific laws about where you can file the case depending on where you are in the water? Isn't there like the federal maritime law and all that? I don't know anything more about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's confusing. It's like a maze. But the good news and why I do it is because a lot of the cruise lines that are headquartered in Miami, like Royal, Carnival, Norwegian, Celebrity, Regent, some of them are parent subsidiary, but they have a ticket contract and there's all this fine print. And just like when you go online now, there's terms and conditions. And it actually says you have to bring your lawsuit in United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida, federal court in Miami. So only really Miami guys do it,
Right.
and women. It's
forum selection clause.
Forum selection clause, and it says you have to do in federal court. You have to be, for personal injury and wrongful death. But there's a whole lot of other things that can happen. Like if it's a wrongful death and it's more than 3 miles out, it's going to be governed by another general maritime rule. It's called DOSHA, which is the Death on the High Seas Act. And it's real draconian. And it's not like you don't have the same damages available that you would like in a car accident or something like that if it happened in Florida or anywhere else. It's real limited. You're limited to actual pecuniary losses is what the federal courts say, which is your income. And so if you're a 13-year-old girl that falls overboard or, someone who's unemployed, there's no damages to collect. So it's difficult. Yeah. So there's a lot of restrictions.
How's that fair? I mean, it's just insane. I mean, we have these like old laws that we just like keep on the books, right? Like that one, right? Where, like you said, a 13-year-old kid dies from clear negligence of the cruise line. And, there's some law that says, well, you can only recover whatever, income she would have made. And you're like, she didn't make any. She was 13, but she's dead. And then the law is like, oh, sorry. Like,
no,
has there been any push by, I mean, I guess you'd have to get that repealed would be the only thing you could do.
Yeah. I mean, look, the cruise lines, it's a huge industry. It's only getting bigger. They have a lot of influence, in Congress, and, they're like their own government. These cruise ships, they're like floating cities. They don't have the same oversight. And it wasn't until like 15 years ago that Congress actually got involved and they actually had to start reporting crimes. Like, people
really?
would they didn't even report. They would self-report. Now they're supposed to report to the FBI when certain crimes like sexual assault, thefts, robberies, and violent crimes, they're supposed to report to the FBI now. So, and that goes underreported, and people people don't want to report themselves the victims a lot of times in these sexual assault, but there is a problem on these cruise ships, not just with passengers on passengers, but like crew members from all over the world. I've had a case where they it's crazy. They had a cabin steward saw a young lady, and I won't say the cruise line, it was a confidential settlement, but they saw a young lady very intoxicated, stumbling back to her cabin. He's got the key card, and she's there for like a wedding. And she had a roommate, thank God, because as he's, committing a violent crime on her, her roommate walks in the room, and that would be the only way she would have found out. And so what does the cruise line do? They don't do anything. They kind of restrict the guy's access. They put him off in the Bahamas with a ticket home back to like the Philippines, wherever the guy was from. So no law enforcement, got involved.
Didn't report it to the police.
Did not, as far as we know. They just gave him a ticket home. So
wait, so am I understanding this, that up until, and correct me if I'm wrong, up until recently, if a crime was committed on a cruise ship, the cruise ship didn't have to report the crime?
Yeah, and depending on the nationality of the victim, there's no law enforcement. They're in international waters. I mean, people report it. Like if you're a U.S. citizen, you're going to call the FBI, right? Like my client happened to be Canadian, so the FBI refused to get involved. So I called the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, and that's who tried to get some information. And the cruise line says they cooperated fully with law enforcement, and it's a strict liability case, so that's great for lawyers, for me. So it's like a dog bite, when you own a dog and there's strict liability for the attack. So in federal maritime law, a cruise line is strictly liable. Essentially, it's a heightened burden for acts of their crew members in that regard. So that's really
even intentional torts like sexual assault.
Sexual assault, especially, yeah.
Well, that's good.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really, because I have countless cases where there was an employee who sexually assaulted or physically assaulted someone, and I bring a claim against the employer, and the defense. It's that's an intentional act, so we're not vicariously liable, or we're not covering it with insurance.
It's really an insurance problem, more than anything here. I mean, I got fights and sexual assaults just on land, and now there's no insurance for it at all. They used to have like a sub limit that was like, they have $1 million policy and they got a 25 sub limit for just that. Now it's like nothing, zero. They don't carry it. Same with dog bite insurance. You got to pay extra in Florida to get dog bite insurance when it used to be standard in a homeowner's policy. So
I have a case right now that I'm actually picking a jury on June 5th. What's today? May 23rd. So
soon,
less than 2 weeks. And it's it's a medical malpractice case, and it's a birth injury case, which I do a lot of those. So negligence during labor and delivery. But what makes this case unique is that, and I've never seen this in my whole career, haven't done this. The child was born and had massive trauma to the head because of the positioning of the child in during labor and delivery, which should have been handled with a C-section, but wasn't. And the midwife, I don't know if we'll ever find out why, when the kid was born without the consent or agreement of any of the parents, and when they'll whisk the baby away and bring the baby to the little measuring station,
I've been there. I've seen it.
Me too. Figured. But yeah, so when they were over there, this midwife takes her personal cell phone, takes a picture of the baby's head, which, by the way, was deformed due to the trauma, the birth trauma, very deformed, and she had very bad bruising on her forehead. And then the midwife posts the photo on her personal Instagram account, which is public, which anybody can go on, and with the following caption: jelly bean head, referring to the shape of the child's head. Jelly bean head, courtesy of malpresentation. Malpresentation being when the baby's in the wrong presentation, like advertising this as if it were some cool science project.
Well, good evidence, I guess.
And then you have other. This is just insane. You have
other counts besides medical malpractice, right? You got a HIPAA violation.
Big time. And I filed a medical negligence claim, but I also filed invasion of privacy,
Yeah.
all those intentional torts. And of course, you have the insurance company coming in on a reservation of rights.
Ugh.
So, going, oh, well, yeah, intentional. But
I think you get around that, right? That's negligence. Maybe it wasn't like intentional. Is like I meant to hit someone, but they were just ignorant.
What I did in my, I pled that under my medical professional negligence claim because I have a midwife expert who says that's a deviation from the standard of care. Like
Right.
that's negligent in how you deal with a patient or how you interact with the
Yeah.
patient. So I do think it falls within the scope of professional negligence, but the insurance, and I think those insurance policies have to be construed in favor of the insured. So I think I'm okay, but I always find it interesting I don't think normal people, normal meaning non-lawyers, understand like the back firefights that go on in the background of cases with insurance companies just doing every little thing they can to get out of paying. Like I don't think people know the lengths that they go to. People just go, oh, something bad happened and my kid died or whatever, I was assaulted, and then it's I don't know about you, but I find
you a check. They think like it's super easy. No, it's getting harder and harder. But that's crazy. So I think you got a good argument. And then hopefully the insurance company doesn't defend. Are they going to defend her? Because we've been seeing these things happening here.
They're defending her, but then there's another added element where she was technically employed by a private practice group, but the birth occurred in a big hospital. So the private practice group has $1 million in insurance. The life care plan, which for those that don't know what that means, that's a future medical costs of someone who's severely injured that you are entitled to be compensated for if someone was negligent. The future life care plan ranges anywhere from, based on inflation, 27 million to 125 million for this. The kid's 6. So the midwife has $1 million, but the hospital has 53 million. But the hospital is coming in and saying, well, we're not vicariously liable because we didn't employ the midwife.
Right.
But the chair of their department, the midwife company was like this shell company that like literally wasn't even real. They all delivered at this hospital, like for all intents. And the chair of obstetrics and gynecology at the defendant hospital came and testified that this lady was employed at the hospital. The midwife testified she was employed at the hospital. My client testified.
How can they get around that?
My client testified, they told me she was employed at the hospital. And, so I'm like looking at this, like, looking at the defense lawyer's like beating his chest, like, oh, there's no agency. And I'm like, not only are you wrong, but like, I think you're bordering on the unethical. Like, I really do. There's no, like, they didn't produce pay stubs or any evidence.
Isn't that every case? Every defense is bordering on unethical in all my cases. It's like they come up with anything. I had a guy in a med mal case, a defense. It was a doc. It was at a facility, and my client, shouldn't have been cleared for like toe surgery. It was like a podiatry thing, but the radiologist misread the workup. I don't even think he read it. He was probably out on the golf course and looks at it on his phone, and he had like a, blocked anterior descending. Everything was blocked. He shouldn't have been under.
Right.
And so they're wheeling him out of surgery, and he's talking to his wife, and he has a heart attack and dies. And their defense, sleep apnea. I'm like, he was awake talking to his wife. What didn't you read in the thing? What was sleep apnea? But
I bet the medical records contemporaneously didn't say sleep apnea.
No,
right
at all. No.
Yeah, I love that in trial. I love it when defense, because they'll make up something medically, then their experts will put it in their expert report, and then the doctor will testify to it, and then I like to say to the jury, we're going to show you them. I'll say to the jury, you don't know me, like you shouldn't trust anything I say. I'm a lawyer you met 3 days ago. But I'll show you. I'll show you everything. I'll show you the medical records where it says this. I'll show you the medical record where it says. I'll show you this person's testimony. I said, but keep your eyes open and your ears open, because the defense, they're going to come in with what I call a lawsuit defense. And a lawsuit defense is something they make up after the fact that isn't actually what they thought happened at the time. They're going to tell you that it was sleep apnea.
Right.
I'm gonna bring in a stack of medical records about 7 feet high. You won't see sleep apnea in there. Like, but yeah, they do this stuff. They don't like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a naive dummy or something, but I just think it's so like, how do you like do that your whole career and just be like cool with it? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I started out my career on that side doing defense work, and I couldn't take it anymore. So what happened to me, I was doing insurance defense work, defending big insurance companies and trucking companies that like were killing people, tractor trailers. And I got this case that I jumped in. I was like a young lawyer. It was probably malpractice to put me on it. I was so young and didn't know anything. And, they're like, this guy, there was a phantom vehicle. My boss just said there's a phantom vehicle. I was like, okay, that's funny. There's not another vehicle in the crash report. So, all right. So that was a good start. And then, so my job was to get dirt on the plaintiff and find out, how injured he was, because he was rear-ended by a tractor trailer. I don't know if you're familiar with overseas highway down on the Keys. When you drive down to the Keys, they have these giant cement telephone poles and utility poles. And he just got rear-ended, smashed into one, face rearranged, had metal plates. They had to remove his face, put his face back on, type of thing. And he was a young marine biologist with a young family, and he had to go underwater for his job. And like that, the pressure when you have metal plates and things, you're done. You can't do that anymore with, the injuries he had. And so my job was to see how injured he really was. And so I found a couple pictures of him on boats on the internet or something. And this was like, I thought I got him, and then he comes in for his depo and we were going to grill him on this stuff. And it, his face was totally rearranged and my heart sank and I felt horrible. I was like, this guy deserves every penny, and that made me like, soon after that, I actually got a job with the plaintiff's firm that was handling that case. And I said, I'm out of here. No place for a guy like me on the other side. It's just like,
well, I mean, now I'm sure. Yeah, thank God you came over to the other side. How long have you been doing it?
I've been a lawyer since 2001, so I'm going to be 25 years a lawyer. So doing it a while. Been in Florida. I went to University of Miami for law school, and never looked back. Never moved. I'm from Northeast, Mideast, Maryland, and my parents are still waiting for me to come home.
That's so. I love it. They're like, when are you coming back? Yeah, probably not. Yeah, probably not. But
take the bar in Maryland. I do have a DC bar. I have a DC bar license and an Illinois bar license too. But
nice.
Florida's where it's at. I had a choice. I got into University of Miami for law school and Catholic University in DC. So it was like I went and visited both, and
both great places.
Well, not really. I went to Catholic, and there was, not to be rude, there was a bunch of nuns and priests walking around, and then I go to University of Miami, and there's palm trees and people wearing shorts and tank tops and bikinis. It was a pretty easy choice for like a 22-year-old or whatever I was.
I went to college in Florida. I went to Flagler in St. Augustine, so
okay,
north of you about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. But yeah, I visited because we moved to Florida when I was 15 from Massachusetts. And so I visited one college, which was Flagler, and it's literally on the beach in St. Augustine.
Yeah, that's
it's
cool.
like 3,000 students. I probably shouldn't be saying this on a podcast, but no, it was like 70% women.
Oh.
I was 18. I was 18.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to Flag. I'm going to Flag.
Yeah,
but no, it was great. Yeah, and but yeah, the nuns and Catholic.
Yeah, it was.
Well, how did you? I'm just curious how you ended up kind of now where you are in terms of really finding that niche with the cruise injury cases. I mean, was that kind of like from the beginning, or was that something that developed over time?
It's something that developed over time. So how I got into the cruise injury business is obviously I'm a personal injury lawyer in Florida, and there's a million of us, and some guys actually go to court. Some guys are just, big firms and they settlement guys. And so these cases must be filed in federal court. So are lawyers that don't even want to deal with federal court. So that's one reason. But the real issue is just location, 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 and the forum selection clause. And then I would here and there get cases, and from all over the country. People would say, "Hey, I know this guy in Florida. Call Alex Perkins if you have a cruise injury case." And then it kind of just word of mouth spread, and then more cruises, more people started cruising. It became a bigger and bigger thing. And then I realized, look, in Florida, there's no mandatory minimum bodily injury insurance for automobiles. It's a major problem for consumers here in Florida and for lawyers trying to help them, because most people in Florida, 40% are either no insurance or underinsured. And people go around and say, "Hey, I'm fully covered. I'm fully covered." That means you have the minimum of $10,000 in PIP. PIP is personal injury protection for those lawyers, the people that don't do this kind of law. But it doesn't cover you if you injure someone else. And it gives you $10,000 that can only go to like a chiropractor or a hospital. So there's all these car accidents with no coverage. And that's why the big firms down here have to do a lot of volume, because you got to go through a lot of people to get car accident cases or a commercial vehicle accident. So obviously cruise lines have some deep pockets. So they're public companies, and they're solvent.
Plenty of money to pay out people that have been injured.
Right. And then you got the cruise, the ticket that says it. And so I'm in the right place at the right time. And, that's all she wrote. So look, there's not that many, it's not like car accidents. So it's not as ubiquitous. So you're limited, and there's not going to be these small claims really. So you have to bring the case in federal court. You have 1 year statute of limitations to bring your case. And like, doesn't matter, if they led you on, the cruise line said they're going to send you a discount for another cruise, which they always try to do. Or if you have a lawyer in your local state, like in Michigan or New York, I get these calls. They're like, "Yeah, I was dealing with the cruise line. I sent a demand letter and they said they were going to offer something, and then they went silent." And I said, "Has it been more than a year since the accident?" They're like, "Yeah, it's like a year and 2 months." And I was like, "Well, better notify your malpractice care. You just blew the statute of limitations." And that happens. They slow play people into missing the statute of limitations. So it's a 1 year, and there's a 6-month notice requirement. And the federal courts have upheld all these shortened statute of limitations. They're allowed to do it, even though general maritime law is actually a 3-year statute of limitations for most cases. They can reduce it in the terms and conditions of the contract.
Really? So the 6-month notice requirement comes from the contract.
Comes from the contract, and there's a statute. There's a federal statute on it too, that says that they can require that written notice. And so what happens is there's some wiggle room with that. If there was a notice, like if the cruise line was on notice and you could establish that there was no prejudice, but you're supposed to do this, what's called bill of particulars. It's either 180 days out or 185, depending on the cruise line. And then you have a whole other set of jurisdictional issues, like you were talking about. If it's in international waters, what nationality you are will determine which cruise contract you're working under. If the cruise didn't touch a U.S. port, you're in you're under the Athens Convention and special drawing rights, and you have caps under the European Union. And then if it's Asia, it's a whole nother set of jurisdictional things. So there's a lot of traps. So you got to know it.
Yeah. For those listening, whether they're lawyers or not, I mean, I will just be upfront. Like, this is not a plug or something, but you do need to call Alex Perkins if you get into a, and this is not like a planned advertisement, but no, seriously, I don't think, because the thing is like most personal injury cases, whether you're in a car accident or a medical error or a product or whatever, you're really dealing with kind of the same area of law generally. You have to prove there was someone else owed someone a duty. You have to prove that they breached that duty, which means they were negligent, and you have to prove that that caused damage. What Alex is talking about with specific regard to cruise cases is that it's literally a spider web of different intersecting laws, international laws, federal laws, mixing with state laws. Then there's all sorts of hangups with what the cruise line can put in their contract. And I will just say, like, all jokes aside, you could find yourself SOL, no pun intended, if you are just trying to like shoot from the hip with a case like that. Because everything you just said it's a niche area.
Yeah, absolutely. Spider web. That's a perfect description. It's a spider web of gotcha traps, and you gotta be Spider-Man a little bit.
And you are.
Maybe that'll be my new logo.
I actually feel, if you did put that like Spider-Man as your like, and you were just a lawyer, I feel like that would go viral.
It would, and I'd also get sued by, I guess Disney owns it now, Marvel.
Speaking of Disney, was that a Florida case, that Disney case where I think it was a doctor and her family?
Yeah, the allergy. It's crazy.
They went, this lady and her family, who she happened to be a doctor, had an allergy, went to Disney, like told the people at the restaurant, I have this deadly allergy. They gave her exactly what she was allergic to. She died. I think she was in her 30s, whatever, it doesn't matter. And left behind her husband and the little kid. They go to sue Disney, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And Disney tried to, if I'm wrong about this, tell me.
No, you're right.
They tried to rely on a BS little fine print provision, not in their Disney tickets to go to the theme park, but in their Disney Plus channel that they bought on their Roku TV that says something about, we agree to go to arbitration or something. Wasn't that what it was?
Hail Mary. Like, it's such a bad look. Like, I don't know why their lawyers.
They shouldn't even have done that strategically, to your point, as a PR matter, even if they could have, right?
Such a bad optics on that. So they used in the terms and conditions of Disney Plus, which the guy canceled. It wasn't even active, if I recall. It was the husband. It wasn't the wife. So it wasn't even her credit card that booked it. Like, they, randomly found that the husband applied. And I guess he's, a survivor. So they're saying that he couldn't bring the claim. And I don't remember all the details, where they're saying, I think they had children. So I don't know if they were trying to knock the whole thing out, but it was just such a bad look that why try it? Honestly, they're probably going to try to do that in all their ticket contracts now anyway, the right way to not have your constitutional right to bring a lawsuit, chill your rights. But Disney's like the cruise lines. We got some big actors down here that are very unforgiving, scorched earth, litigation. I mean, I've had cases against them, and they wanted to depose like 4-year-old children.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah, and I was like, what are you gonna? I don't know if he can even talk very well yet. How's he gonna articulate?
Do the courts let them do that, or are they like pretty good about protective order?
MPO, motion for protective order. They're like, well, we just want to take a limited one to see what they saw. I'm like, okay,
limited. It's like you're sitting down with a kid. You're going to traumatize them. Like, they've already experienced. Yeah, that's gross.
It's so gross. I just had it in a case, not against a cruise line or Disney, but in a dog bite case. The kid was 3 years old, and the brother was 5 years old. And they want to take their depots. They're because they got attacked by a dog, and they want to see if they provoke the dog. Meanwhile, they're walking on a public sidewalk, and the dogs break out of this dilapidated fence, run them down, and horrible traumatizing attack. And they want to take their depots.
It's their fault.
Yeah. Their fault.
How dare that kid walk on that sidewalk?
How dare he use a tricycle in the neighborhood? So the law is, though, in Florida, I think it's 6 or 7 years old. You can't even be negligent. So what's the point?
Right. Same in Pennsylvania. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I guess they want to blame the parents. I don't know, but the parents were there too. So it's insane. They'll try it.
You just made me think of this. And again, I hate some defense lawyers. I don't mind saying that. Not all of them, but some of them are they're like heartless, like psychopaths, literally. I took a deposition a couple weeks ago. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old child. I took a deposition at home at 6 p.m. to accommodate some witness for an insurance company. It's a deck action. It's a case where the insurance company is trying to say we don't owe any money for this case where a van crashed and killed a bunch of people. That I represent and got a $15 million verdict on.
Nice.
So And, but they're like trying to proclaim there's no coverage. So anyways, this insurance lady from Arizona was, oh, I need to be deposed at 6 p.m. And out of the goodness of my heart, I go, okay, and remotely, okay.
Mhm.
So I do it at home, and literally the insurance company, the lawyer for the insurance company, which makes sense, is he's a terrible person. I don't care. I'm not saying his name so he can't sue me for defamation, but he's just
Right.
he's like an awful guy. And during the deposition, my 3-year-old daughter like runs up behind me. I'm on mute, by the way, because I mute unless I'm talking. And she says, Daddy, like, and she holds up her milk cup, like, can I get some milk? And so I just like kind of turn around and go pour her a little cup of milk and give it to her. And she's like, thank you, and runs off. And her and her brother were playing. And this defense lawyer literally goes, we need to go off the record or off the video. And I go, why? And he goes, I have to put somebody on the record. He literally on the record. And there's like 4 other defense lawyers too, because there's other parties in the case. He's like, Tom, I don't mean to draw too much attention to this, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that it's extremely distracting to have your child in the background of the video. And we object to that. And like literally
Why don't you
nobody.
say that on the record, though? Why off the record? I'd say no. Anything you have to say is on the record.
No, it was on the record. He said, like, let's go off the video because it was being
the video.
videotaped.
Got it.
But I like literally responded like on the record. I was like, I think I said actually like this is in a transcript somewhere. I literally said, dude, are you joking? Like I said that. I was like, are you serious? I said, like, nobody else agrees with you. There's 4 other people here. Like that. That's insane. I said, I'm a father. And my daughter asked me to refill her cup of milk, and I did it on mute. And what are you talking about?
You should say maybe you have a ADHD. Maybe you need some medicine if that's distracting to you.
And then I go, do you have children? This is like on the record.
Yeah.
He goes, yes, I do. And I said, geez, I hope you don't treat them like you treat other people. I'm like, I hope you're nice. I said that. I'm like, I hope you're nice. But anyway, no, but I don't mean to digress, but I do think you see a lot of lack of humanity in the law. I think you see a lot of, lawyers who maybe they were like that to begin with, or maybe they became that way, and maybe it's the chicken or egg phenomenon. But do you know what I'm saying? You see a lot of people that get, money, power / the wrong people in the wrong positions. Is it kind of a dangerous equation in the law? Because I don't know if you agree.
Look, as a young lawyer, I had no idea what this personal injury and insurance defense world was. I just needed a job. So I got my first job as a lawyer. It was like right after 9/11. And I was like, I just got to get working. And I had no idea what I was going to be asked to do and how interrogating you would have to be. I'm like, I don't want to do criminal cases. So I didn't realize that it's only about money. So why is it so they treat each other worse than criminal defense lawyers and prosecutors get along way better than, some of these, insurance industry folks. So yeah, they're pretty toxic. I think it's a culture, and I think it becomes their personality, and that's their whole identity. For some people, that's just who they become, or it fits their personality, which is why I knew I couldn't do that. I was like, why am I going to be that person, not really helpful to people? I understand companies deserve to be defended, and, there's a lot of fraud out there. So you can't treat everybody like a fraud and a criminal. Like in this dog bite case, 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, he wants to take a deposition. The insurance, huge State Farm insurance company is fitting the bill. And there should be, this case should have been settled long ago. It's super bad injuries, traumatic, and they're just taking their time because interest rates are high right now. So insurance companies have a longer incentive than they did so before to hang on to the money as long as they can. And, it's the same situation. I was like, do you have children? Would you want your 3-year-old deposed or a 5-year-old deposed? What are you doing here?
Right. And then they'll go, some response.
No, I had this guy who was in depot yesterday. It was very funny. And as soon as we finally get like 4 hours talking about the dog bite, the actual attack, and my client starts crying, and she's telling a great story. She's like, I had to make a choice between my 3-year-old or 5-year-old to pick up. And because I couldn't hold both while the dogs were attacking me and my 3-year-old, and I had to make the choice. And she's bawling, and he's like, well, I just want to know when and he interrupted. And I was like, let her finish the question. He's like, I just want to know my answer to my question, I go, you asked what happened. You can't, just because it's not good for your case, you can't, stop her from her answer. That's why.
They do that. They do that.
Yeah.
They do. Oh, it gets me fired up.
Yeah.
But
It's so rude.
what are there like some common defenses that the cruise companies come up with? I mean, obviously every case is different, but do you see like repeat defenses?
Right. So the most common injury or common incident that we have on a cruise ship are slip and falls and trip and falls. The slip and fall on the Lido deck, which is the pool deck. They know they have a problem with all these materials of the flooring, the synthetic teaks. They have to be maintained a certain way. So the common defense I see is they blame you on a Caribbean cruise for wearing flip-flops. Like your footwear is dangerous, right? Like they do in any slip and fall. They want to see your shoes.
You're on a cruise ship.
But you're on a Caribbean cruise. And every other person, if you look at a video, is wearing flip-flops or sandals. And I had a case against Disney Cruise Line, and it was a slip and fall, and they used the flip-flop defense. And I said to my client, can you please send me pictures of those shoes that I told you to preserve that you were wearing? She goes, sure. I get the pictures. And sure enough, it has Minnie Mouse on the bottom of the flip-flop. And I say, where did you get these shoes? Oh, I bought them in the gift shop on the cruise line. Settle. That was
good defense.
Yeah. So there goes that defense. But look, we got cases that alcohol is always a thing.
I was gonna say, like, dude, if you go on a cruise, like I would say 95% of people are drinking. Obviously, some more than others, but like
people are bouncing in the walls. That's how drunk they are. The boat's moving, they're drunk.
Yeah, but I bet like even if someone like had like a mimosa or like two Bloody Marys, that like they're latching onto that, like oh, you order and they're like, yeah, I'm like on the cruise.
Well,
right?
here's the alcohol defense. This is what they do. Number one, when you have, for example, a slip and fall or any type of injury, and you are in the medical center and they are interviewing you, because the medical staff will respond just like the security staff, and they're trained to ask questions that reduce risk, and liability. And one of the things they do now, they do ask people to take breathalyzers and slip and falls. If it's really bad and they have to draw blood, they'll ask for a blood draw, and they can do alcohol. Yet they're equipped with like not the greatest X-rays, and they don't have MRIs, even though they got 7,000 people on there, but they have breathalyzers. They have the ability to do blood alcohol tests.
They don't have actual medical equipment.
They don't have
people
really
get hurt.
They don't even have American doctors. The doctors and staff are not, United States trained. They're usually from some other country, and they're not licensed to practice medicine in Florida or any other state. So when they come down to the sick bay or the infirmary or medical center, whatever you call it, they will also make you fill out a questionnaire. In fact, sometimes they'll fill it out for you, like an incident report and an accident statement. And I'm seeing this more and more, and I just had 2 of them in a case where it says, who do you blame for the accident? And you only get
in a medical form?
On a statement form in the medical center, and it says, who do you blame for the accident? And it only gives you a checkbox: myself, other. So what about the box for the cruise line or a crew member? They don't give you that choice. And I just had a case, I think it was I don't know if it was against Royal Caribbean. And my client is saying, not only did I not fill this out, I filled out the medical form, the statement, but this checkbox thing and the description, that's not my handwriting of what injuries my husband had. That's not my signature. And they tried to emulate her signature is what she's saying. So We'll find out. We're going to litigate that. But they set things up at the very beginning. They know what defenses they're going to use later. And they know people are in a state of shock after a severe injury. If they have a broken ankle or broken wrist, they're in pain. They may not even be filling out the form. One of their friends or a relative may be filling out the accident claim form, and they won't give you the incident report. Incident reports are work product privilege, and you can't get it unless you're in the litigation, but you can get your own medical record and you can get your own statement. I can usually get that at the beginning when I send my letter of rep. But so it's they know what they're doing.
So wait, so do they give them that form to fill out in the medical unit that says, who do you blame?
Yeah. So in the medical unit, oftentimes security will come down to the medical unit and do that form. Sometimes the medical staff, it all just depends who's working that day, who responded when they're, like, for example, if they're on the ground in front of the buffet where there's like old coffee that was there since the morning and someone slips and falls on it, and there 10 security officers will come. They start taking pictures of your shoes. They start, as they're trying to, find out if you're okay, they're really trying to find out if they're okay, and
Right.
they're going to get sued. So they start asking questions. They start with the camera, taking pictures. They're supposed to preserve the CCTV footage, which they have everywhere now on the ships. And so they will give you that form. Either they'll meet you in the medical center typically, or after you're released, they'll go to the scene with you or come to your cabin if you're too hurt. But oftentimes it's done in the medical center. And sometimes it's the medical staff giving you that form, and they'll ask you to write something, and sometimes they'll just fill it out for you. And that's the real danger spot, when they're filling it out for you, because, it's never right and it's not going to be favorable to you. And so and they utilize those all the time. So when you go to make the claim, they say, well, the client blames himself, and they had the chance, and they're going to be, why would they lie about that? But meanwhile, my client was given narcotic pain morphine because they have a broken hip or a broken leg, and they have no idea what they're signing. They're just like, get this out of my face. I might have to go to the hospital in Tahiti, so it's under duress for sure.
I would love to depose a doctor on a cruise line in one of those cases, and I would put that form in front of them, and I would be like, I want to focus your attention here on this question that says, who do you blame? There's 2 checkbox, myself or someone else. You see that? Yeah.
How is that relevant?
That form's not. That form ain't on any medical form you ever had when you worked at the hospital over here, and when you did your residency here, when you worked here, and you never saw that there, did you? No. And by the way, the answer to this question here on this form has absolutely nothing to do with what you need to know to treat the patient. Agree?
Yeah, I like that.
Like, that's like crazy. I mean, it's not. I believe it, but it's just classic corporate protection.
Of course. And it's these cruise lines. I mean, they won't show you the CCTV footage. I got one against Viking Cruise right now, and my client swears, as she was going down the gangway. This is another area where there's a lot of injuries. Disembarking, we're getting on a cruise. You go down the gangway or a gangplank, and it's either slippery, it's wet, it's at a steep pitch, the boat's moving, and it's not secured properly. Or some have the anti-skid, that black sandpaper tape, but it's like all peeled up or it's missing. So people, ultimately, they really get messed up when you fall off something that of height, or you trip and fall because there's something on there, and it's always a broken leg or a broken hip or a broken kneecap. And my client says there was no anti-skid tape on the last 2 steps. I am positive, but of course, when you have a broken leg, you're not thinking about taking pictures. So how we go about getting, documentation is, we go on videos. You're not going to ever see like the picture with the water on the floor, very rare, or the condition that it was at that time. But on a gangway that has something that's worn out, you may see it if people post their entire cruise online on YouTube. So sometimes you could go back and see a condition or get an idea of what an area looks like. So, but when they don't show you the CCTV footage, because they'll never give it to you pre-suit without a subpoena or judge ordering it. So I say to them, well, my client's saying this happened, and you're saying my client's lying or misremembering. So tell me, will you show me this video? I know you won't send it to me, but can we do a Zoom conference? And if my client's lying, I will not file this lawsuit. I would want to know, and you should want to know, because you don't want to have to pay defense costs. So
That's
just
smart.
show me the video.
Only reason they wouldn't do it then is if they're in the wrong.
Exactly. So yesterday they just sent back. I've been trying for 2 weeks to view the CCTV footage. I just want to see if the gangway there's some steps that extend on the last 2 steps. I want to see if they were fully extended, and I want to see if the anti-skid tape was on there, because my client says no. And she has pictures hours later that her husband took, and it's like fresh black tape.
They
And
put
she's
new
like,
tape on.
yeah. And the other tape's not black. It's like red.
It's more worn out. Yeah.
Yeah, totally worn out. So they said no after going back and forth for a week. And I said, well, then you leave me no choice. And now I know I'm on the right track. So
Yeah,
we're gonna file a lawsuit.
Well, Alex, I got to wrap it up here, but I'm so glad that you came on and everything that you shared with us. Super, super helpful, insightful, important stuff. I guess I'll end by asking you to tell folks, hopefully they never have to call you, but where can people find you if they need to get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me in Miami, Florida physically, but you can find me online at perkinslawoffices.com. Obviously, all the social media, just put in Perkins Law Offices or Perkins Miami, Perkins Lawyer, injury lawyer near me in Miami. I don't know, wherever you'll find me, I'll pop up. So I really appreciate meeting you, and I want to continue talking to you after this podcast, and maybe we'll do some business together. That'd be wonderful.
It'd be awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Take care.
You too.
And that's a wrap for this episode of City of Brotherly Law. I'm Tom Bosworth, reminding you that in Philly, we don't just practice law, we live it, we breathe it, we fight for it every day. This city was built on grit and determination. That's exactly how we approach justice. That's how we approach cases. Join us next time for more straight talk and legal insights from the heart of Philadelphia. Until then, stay tough and keep it real, Philly.